Okay, so for this project, we're going to be learning how to mix tints and shades. You're going to be picking two complementary colors, meaning opposite colors, and on the back of your paper, you're going to do a little practice grid to practice your color mixing and your brush control. So what you'll be doing is making two gradients that are 10 inches. So you're going to go from 0 to 10, 0 to 10. And then skip a spot and do that again. And then you're going to measure, make each box an inch. So you get to use your math skills in art. Look at that. So there's my boxes. They don't have to be perfect, but as long as you have about equally spaced 10 boxes and 10. So what you're going to do first is refer to your color wheel on page 29 in your book, and you're going to choose two opposite or complementary colors. I'm choosing violet and yellow. And the first thing we're going to learn how to do is make tints. Tints is when you make a color lighter. Now, the biggest mistake a lot of beginning painters make is when they're mixing tints, they start with the color and keep adding white, and then finding it's not light enough, and they keep dumping a lot of white paint and wasting a lot of paint that way into their color. So when you're mixing a tint, you actually start with white and you add a tiny bit of the color that you want. So what I'm going to do is I have my two colors here, and I'm going to separate out a little bit of white paint. And I'm going to clean my brush, because when I dip into the violet, I don't want a bunch of white in there, because then it's going to be hard to control my paint. And then I'm going to take the tiniest amount of violet and mix it in completely into the white. So your first value should look like a white that's slightly tinted with your color that you're choosing. And mix it. Take some time to mix that paint in so it's consistent. If you have swirls, you're not really going to know what value you have. It's going to look marbled, which might look cool, but you know, that's not what we're doing for this project. And then wipe off your brush. If your brush has too much paint, it's gloppy, it's going to be really hard to have brush control. And then you're just going to put a little bit of brush right at the end of the bristles like that, and then you're going to paint in the first square, the first little box. Okay, and then next what I'm going to do is add a little bit more violet into what I already mixed. And this is the easiest way to do it instead of trying to go back from violet and make it lighter. The other thing to remember about acrylic paints is that they get darker when they dry. So just keep that in mind. Each box should show a slight difference in the value. Like, it shouldn't be a big jump, but you should be able to see a change in the value where it's slightly darker. Okay, so can you see that up on the screen? With the lighting, it's difficult just coming across. And notice I'm painting slowly along the edge, so I'm practicing my brush control too. Then I go back, scoop a little bit more violet. Mix it in. I'll see if we have palette knives. That might be better for mixing. So we'll see that, because these brushes like to use a lot of paint. And test it. See if that's enough of a change. If it's not enough of a change, you just add more, but in this case, that's fine. So you can see the slight change, right? Add a little bit more. And see how I reserved some plain white too, and that way if I had added too much, I can use that white to lighten it up again. And it's just good to reserve some paint, some clean paint. What I always do when I'm painting is also have two palettes, one for my cool colors and one for warm colors. Okay, see, that's not enough of a change, right? It looks almost identical to that one, so I just have to add more violet. The other great thing about acrylic paint is if you mess something up, you just wait for it to dry and you can paint right over. Unlike watercolors. That changes really ever so slight. See, if I tried to paint with that right there, it would be impossible to know what value you're going to get. So you have to take some time to really mix your paint in to make it consistent. And then that last one right here would just be the plain violet. Now you'll notice this violet is very translucent, so you'll be able to see through it. The white, when you add white to it, it makes it opaque. Okay, so that's the tints right there. So when you squint at it, you should kind of see a slight transition where it looks like it smoothly goes from one shade to another. I guess what I would have done different is maybe made one more shade between these, but I have to reserve these for the shades, adding black. Okay, for adding black, you do the opposite. You start with the color and you add a tiny bit of black to it. So here I have violet, and I'm going to get some black paint. Okay, so for the shades, before we made tints, which is adding white, for the shades, you're going to start with the color and add slight amounts of black to it until it gets completely black. So what I'm going to do is put some violet paint over here, reserve some clean paint, and then mix a tiny bit of black into the violet. The tricky part with this is too that the black and the violet are translucent, so you're going to see how different it looks. So here is violet with a tiny bit of black in it. And I didn't wipe off my brush and clean it, so you could see how like it's harder to have brush control and go and keep in your edges neatly. Whereas here I wiped my brush. You can see the difference, right? touch more black paint. And if you don't get the right value the first time, you can just do another layer over it. Especially when it's translucent, it's hard to tell the value. And you can also see where I layer it, it gets really dark there on the edge. That doesn't look like enough of a change, so I'm going to add more black and layer over it. See, a big reason we're doing this is so that, one, you can learn how to mix paint, two, practice, so if you realize, oh, I put too much of this color or not enough, you can practice before you do your painting. Just like in music class, you probably learn how to do scale, you practice and do scales before you play actual pieces, right? And then the last one should be pretty much almost black with just a slight tint of it, slight little bit of that color in it. Okay, and there you go. So that is a value scale of one color. And once you practice with one color, then you would do that with your opposite color. So then I'm going to go back and do that with yellow.